This video is about applying properties of unknown coordinates in a coordinate plane. So in number 1 and number 2, we're going to find the missing coordinate. So number 1, we see that A is 0, 0, and that B is 2 question marks, and C is 10H, comma 8K. So if we see that these are 2 tick marks here, we know that that segment has been cut into 2 congruent parts, which makes B the midpoint, which is halfway between C and A. Now because A is 0, 0, all we have to do to the C coordinate is cut it in half by dividing by 2. So 10H divided by 2 is 5H, 8K divided by 2 is 4K. In number 2, we're going the opposite direction, where again this segment was bisected. We know A and we know B, we're trying to find the endpoint C. So if we're trying to find the endpoint, instead of cutting that coordinate in half, we now want to double the coordinate. So negative 2H times 2 would be negative 4H, and 4K times 2 would be 8K. Number 3, L is the midpoint of DO, which bisects that into 2 congruent parts, and of EZ. So EZ is also bisected into 2 congruent parts. Find the coordinates of D, E, and Z. So thinking back to the last chapter, we have vertical angles because this was like a bow tie problem, which means that those triangles are congruent by side, angle, side. So we also know that the third set of sides in these triangles are going to be congruent, which is going to be helpful when we're trying to find our missing coordinates. So first, notice that E, L, and Z are all on the y-axis, which means they're going to have x coordinates that are going to be zeros. Now, to find the y-coordinate, we see that Z is lined up on a horizontal line with O, so they're going to have the same y-coordinate, which is going to be negative 6. Now, we also know that from L to Z is the same distance as E to L. So if I went from L to Z, up and down, my y-coordinate is 6, that means this distance is 6. So this distance is also 6. So to find the coordinate of E, from L we went up 6, so 0 plus 6 would get us a y-coordinate of 6. And it's positive because it's above the x-axis, because remember this would be your y-axis and this would be your x-axis, and we're following the coordinate rules. So now to get D, we see that D is even with E, so it's going to have the same y-coordinate, which is 6. Now to get the x-coordinate, we know from O to Z that x-coordinate was 4, so it has a distance of 4, which is the same thing up here. Now, to get from E to D, we're moving into the second quadrant, which means that the x's are going to be negative, so this is going to be negative 4, comma 6. Let's try again looking at another one where we have some variables and not just numbers. So when we're trying to find B and D in number 4, we see that C has the x-coordinate of negative 2m. So both of those are going to have negative 2m as the x-coordinate. We also know then the distance from A to B is 2m, which means the distance from D to E is also 2m. So the coordinate for E, remember we're in the third quadrant where everything is negative, is going to be negative 4m, because we have 2m and then we went over another 2m. Now to get the y-coordinates, B is on the x-axis, so the y-coordinate is going to be 0. Now looking at the C, we went down n. So if we go down another n, that's 2, so our y-coordinate would be negative 2n. And E is on a horizontal line with D, so it's going to have the same y-coordinate of negative 2n. 5 and 6, D, E, and F are midpoints. So remember the midpoint formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2 and y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So to find D, we're just going to add the x-coordinates. 2 plus 8 is 10, divided by 2 is 5. 3 plus 11 is 14, divided by 2 is 7. So D would have the coordinates of 5, 7. When we do E, 8 plus 10 is 18, divided by 2 is 9. And then 11 plus negative 3 is 8, divided by 2 is 4. For F, 2 plus 10 is 12, divided by 2 is 6. And 3 plus negative 3 is 0, divided by 0 is still 0. Same thing in E. Right away we can find F as our midpoint, so 1 plus 9 divided by 2 is 5, and 2 plus negative 2 divided by 2 is 0. Now, to find B, B is not a midpoint, it's an endpoint. So we need to look at how are we getting from C to E, and we're going to use that same rule to get to B, because E is a midpoint, so that side is bisected. So they have the same distance between their coordinates. So if I look at just the x coordinates of 9 and 6, to get from 9 to 6, I'm subtracting 3. So I'm going to subtract 3 again from 6 and get that my x coordinate of B is 3. Then when I look at the y's, to go from negative 2 to 3, I added 5. So I'm going to add 5 again, and I get 8 as the y coordinate. Now that I know B, I can quickly get D, because A and B have a midpoint as D. So 1 plus 3 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 plus 8 divided by 2 is 5. One more thing we're going to look at then is the slope formula. So remember, the slope formula is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Point slope form, that's when we have a point and the slope. It's going to be y minus y1, which is the y coordinate, equals m times x minus x1, which is the x coordinate. And then slope intercept form, we need the slope and the y-intercept, which is y equals mx plus b. So this is a review from algebra that we're going to use the next few days for writing equations of lines. So write the equation in point slope form, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. That passes through the point 5, negative 8, and has a slope of negative 2/3. So we're going to put 8 in for x1. We're going to put negative 5 in for y1. And we are going to put the slope, negative 2/3, in for m. So all we're doing is we're substituting, and we get y minus negative 5, which makes it plus 5 equals negative 2/3 x minus 8. And it's point slope form, so we can stop there. In number 9, we have to write in slope intercept form. That passes through the point 4, negative 3, and has a slope of 2. Now the problem is we don't know the y-intercept. So what we're going to have to do is we have to start in point slope form still, and then move to slope intercept form. So for point slope with the information, we have y minus 3 equals 2 times x plus 4. Now to move into slope intercept form, it's 2 steps. The first step, we're going to distribute that 2. So y minus 3 equals 2x plus 8. And then we're going to add 3 to both sides. So our point slope form is y equals 2x plus 11 for slope intercept. Number 10, write the equation of the line in point slope form that passes through the points 8, negative 2, and 14, negative 6. So this time we don't have the slope, so before we can write our equation, we need to find the slope. So we're going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which gets us negative 4 over 6, which reduces to negative 2/3. Now for point slope form, we need the slope, and we can pick either point. So I'm just going to pick the first point. So when I write my equation, y minus the y coordinate, but because it's negative, it will become plus 2, equals our slope times x minus the x coordinate. In number 11, the same thing, we're going to start finding our slope. So we have 2 minus negative 8 over 9 minus 4, which gets us 10 over 5, and that reduces to 2. So we're going to use the slope of 2, and our point, we're going to again start in point slope form and move to slope intercept. So we have y minus the y coordinate, which would be y plus 8 then, because 8 was already negative. So remember, a way to think about this is it gets the opposite sign of what it has. Slope keeps the same sign, so 2, and then x minus 4. So to move into slope intercept form, remember there's 2 steps. We distribute first. So we get y plus 8 equals 2x minus 8. And then we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. So we get y equals 2x minus 16.